Hi there guys. In this video we're going to have a look at some commercial Softpoint hunting ammunition in 7.62 by 54R. This is sold under the MFS brand name. It's a Softpoint 203 grain load, and it is loaded in a zinc plated steel case. Now for those of you who are familiar, MFS is a Hungarian brand. However, these are not Hungarian manufactured cartridges. You can see it says importer Ruag of Germany, and nothing terribly remarkable about the box. However, you will note on the back here in small print it says made in Russia, and this symbol here that looks vaguely like a bullet is actually a stylized rendition of three Cyrillic characters, B, P, Z, or Z, depending on which way you want to say that, and that is the initials for the Barnaul ammunition factory. Barnulski Patroni Zavoid, I believe, is how that is said. Excuse my pronunciation if that is wrong. So as you can see, it is a square box, and basically what's inside it is a paper packet, a brown paper packet, which is very similar to what you will see military Soviet bloc ammunition packaged in. So we've got our 20 cartridges inside this commercial looking box on the outside, and we've got our brown paper packet inside, which is secured with staple. We're not going to get too fussy about removing the staple. Good strong paper though, I'll tell you that much. And we'll get that opened up, have a look at one of the rounds. And there we go. This is the first time I've had a look at them. And as you can see, it is a zinc plated steel case, like some of the other rounds made in Russia sold under the MFS brand name. And the zinc plating protects the steel cartridge case from corrosion, and it also basically will not be deposited in the chamber of your gun like some of the lacquer coatings on steel cased ammunition will. We've got a fair bit of exposed lead on the bullet. Bit of a candelabra turned into the bullet from the looks of it. And let's have a look at the head stamp. See if we can get this to focus up close. So MFS on the top there, and we have the stylized BPZ or Z logo, and the caliber below it, 7.62 by 54R, one of the oldest serving and oldest loaded calibers out there on the market. And we've got a large Berdan primer with a red sealant around that. So I plan to pull some of these apart and we'll see what's inside them. We'll weigh the powder charges, the bullets, measure the bullets, and finally, I'm not sure if I'll do it in this part. I might do it in a separate video. I think I will do some range testing using this ammunition in my 9130 PU sniper rifle, because it's a good accurate rifle. It would give this ammunition a fair test to see how accurate it is. So this is non-corrosively primed, so should be interesting to see how it's put together and how well it performs on the range. Here are the 10 cartridges which I pulled apart. First off, let's have a look at the bullet itself. These bullets were pulled from the cartridge cases using my RCBS press-mounted bullet puller tool. It took a considerable amount of force to pull these bullets out. The crimp was pretty significant on these, and the neck tension was also fairly significant. As I mentioned earlier, these are a steel jacketed bullet. You can see a magnet sticks to them, and they have a copper coating on them for some measure of corrosion resistance, and also, I believe, to prevent galling of steel jacket inside the steel barrel. As you can see, there's a fairly pronounced amount of lead exposed at the tip. We have a fairly big candelabra here for the cartridge case mouth to be crimped into. And these are basically a flat base bullet. You can see that there is a little bit of a bevel to the bottom, but that I believe is more for ease of manufacturing the cartridges to make the bullet easier to load into the case itself. So let's have a look at some of the dimensions here. Get the calipers out. These are kind of an interesting bullet in that they are actually a 2 diameter bullet. if we measure the biggest diameter of the bullet down at the base here, you can see that we end up with about 310.5 to 310 thereabouts. Closer to 310.5 on this particular one. We'll measure it this way instead. There we go. So we end up with 310, which is about 1,000 smaller than you would expect for this caliber of round. Normally you will see, well, 310.5 to 311 thereabouts. So these are a touch on the smaller side, and the portion which is ahead of the candelore is actually smaller than that. It is actually, get this thing lined up properly. As you can see, it's a little under 309. So these are a 2 diameter bullet. The reduced diameter may have something to do with sporting rifles, which may tend to have tighter bores than military rifles, and also the fact that this is steel jacketed. It may be a little bit more difficult for the rifling to engrave than a similar gilding metal jacketed bullet that you'd find in most hunting ammunition. So we've got that 2 diameter bullet, and I'll show you the length of it. And it's reasonably long. It's 1.246 in this particular case. That varies a little bit. Most of them come in right around 1.250. So took the time to weigh these out as well as just measure them, and find my paperwork here. So we've got the kind of the data that I come up with, and so we've got our 10 bullet weights there. I'll just sort of scan through those. You can have a look and see what we've got. And it comes out to an average of 204.2 grains with a standard deviation of about half a grain, and an extreme spread from the lightest bullet to the heaviest of 1.9 grains, which is a fairly big spread, but probably not unheard of in ammunition in this price point. Can't expect match quality prices for ammunition that sells at sort of the bottom end of the spectrum. So moving right along, we'll have a look at the powder charge. So we've got our scale pan here, and we'll dump out a charge of powder, and nothing terribly interesting there. This is a medium length extruded powder, probably similar to an IMR 4895, 4064, something along those lines. Obviously not those powders in particular, because we are dealing with a foreign manufactured round, so some sort of Russian extruded powder. And we've got the data here for those. Here's our sheet of data. So we've got our powder weights here in grains. So I'll scan through those. You can see what those worked out to be. And we've got an average charge weight of 44.9 grains, standard deviation of a little bit more than 0.2 of a grain, and an extreme spread of 0.8 of a grain from the lightest to the heaviest. So not too bad a consistency. I've seen better, but I've also seen worse. It's once again, it's probably consistent with what you would expect in ammunition at this price point. Next item we'll have a look at is the cartridge case itself. You can see once again the magnet sticks to that without any problem, and it's got that galvanized appearance because it is zinc coated, and that will provide some measure of corrosion resistance. It's interesting, if you see these on the ground at the range that have been left out for a few days, they get a whitish powder coating on them, much like a galvanized roof would get. So get a good close look at our head stamp there. MFS at the top, and we've got the stylized Cyrillic alphabet there that says BPZ or Z, and the caliber designation at the bottom, 7.62 by 54R. We've got a large Berdan primer, and as you can see, the primer has been crimped in. You see this ring around here? It's been crimped to hold it in place. If you're using it in a auto-loading firearm. And there's also a lacquer sealant around the primer to keep moisture out. So that looks pretty good. Put some light on the subject here. Maybe we can see inside the cartridge with any luck. Well, I'm having some trouble getting light down into the inside of the cartridge case, but you'll have to take my word on it. It is a 2 flash hole case, and therefore Berdan primed, and generally considered to be non-reloadable. For most purposes, we can call this non-reloadable stuff. Let's have a look at the size of the primer, and it appears, just from a rough measurement, to be about 0.250 roughly. One final note, I do not intend to actually shoot the ammunition that I pulled apart as my test ammunition. I will use it for getting the rifle zeroed, firing a few fouling shots, but when it comes to actually testing the ammunition for velocity and accuracy, I won't be using the ammunition that I pulled apart. I will be using rounds which are still in their factory form, so as not to skew the results any, because pulling the ammunition apart and putting it back together again could affect the performance. So the stuff I'll be shooting over the chronograph and for groups will be the factory fresh stuff and not this stuff. Anyway, that's probably enough for this phase of the testing, and next we'll move on to some range time.